Okay, thanks for joining us today again. So today we are another episode of the Business Agility podcast, video podcast series. And so that's the time that each week we spend 30 minutes going over business and technology topics for small and medium-sized business owners in Canada. So today our topic is we've just come away from the launch of Acumatica 2021 R1. So that's the first release of the Acumatica cloud software versions, and they have 2 releases every year. And we just had a launch today for that. So what we want to do is just go over some highlights. It's pretty fresh. It just happened about an hour ago, so it's pretty fresh in the mind. Some of us were there, and what we want to do is just break it down a little bit around some of the key things that we've seen there, and really why we think that that's relevant for businesses that are growing and how they might be more agile, what some of the new technologies that are coming out and how you might deploy those or implement them using a piece of software. So that's what we're all about, is trying to be more efficient all the time. Our panelists today are Steve Swenson and Samantha DeForge, along with myself, Murray Quibel. We'll just do some quick intros, and then we're going to get right into our topic. So for me, I'm Murray Quibel, president of Accurus. We are passionate about delivering efficient ERP systems every single day and getting a little bit better. So taking you down a journey that doesn't just stop and start with deploying something, but what can we do better? What can we do next? And we love the fact that Acumatica is always pushing the technology window. With that, I'll turn it over to Sam or Steve to just do a quick intro, and then we'll get into our topic.
Sure. I'm Steve Swenson. I guess I'll start. I noticed you were still on mute, Sam. So that's okay. I'll start. I'm Steve Swenson. I work with, I'm the Director of Business Solutions with Accurus. I've been working with ERP systems and making people more efficient for about 25 years now, and it's the thing I'm most passionate about. So when new software comes out and has new features and can make our customers' lives better, I'm all for it.
And I am Samantha Knighton DeForge, and I work with Accurus as the Business Solutions Manager. And it's launch day, so it's usually one of my favorite days because we get to see what Acumatica, aka the mothership, has released as far as new functionality, what they're enhancing, what's coming out, and just really gives us that great perspective on what's going and what's up and coming, right? I mean, this is what we live for, is as far as helping your customers be more efficient day in and day out. And, new functionality, there's a couple of things that stuck for me, but yeah, I mean, we could get right into it. Murray, what were your thoughts? Or Steve, what were your thoughts?
Well, let's just turn it right in there. I want you guys, maybe we'll start with you, Sam, and then we'll go to Steve. And we just want to go around the table and just throw out, what did you see that looked pretty cool? I mean, I got a few thoughts that I want to go, but maybe I'll toss it back to you, Sam. What did you see that maybe caught your eye, that a couple things that we want to point out and how they're relevant for?
Well, I know that they're definitely rebranding the commerce vertical. So they have rebranded it to retail commerce, making it more sort of, incorporating more of the brick and mortar stores as well, incorporating POS and things like that. But one of the things that they saw that they released today as well was the business card recognition, and that's on my LinkedIn story. I actually got a really good 20-second clip of Doug Johnson actually, doing it. It was like a perfect clip. I don't know how I did it, but it is on my LinkedIn story. So if you do want to go take a look at it, you'll see how Acumatica now, when you take a picture of a business card, will recognize the information, the name, the last name, the title, the phone number, the email, etc., and autofill it into the CRM system. So that was really cool. And then Jessica Gadbois did a nice demonstration on how Acumatica is now handling duplicates as far as, business accounts go, or customers or leads or whatever it might be from a CRM standpoint, right? Lots of enhancements on the usability side of things. They have these new power meter sort of dashboards, I think, Steve, is what you called it. We're sort of messaging each other back and forth. But they got some, nice funnel dashboards now. They got some nice power meter sort of dashboards as well. Oh, and the link tiles. So you can actually create purchase orders now directly. I'm sorry, I'm just going off. I'm like, what did I name off, like 8 things right now? But now they've added the link tiles directly to the dashboard. So if you're a purchasing manager and you create and cut a lot of POs, you can add the ability to cut a purchase order directly on the dashboard. So you don't actually have to go into your favorites now. You don't have to go into the purchasing module. It's right on the dashboard.
What we'll want to do is drill into some of those topics a little bit more. And I want to come back to the retail commerce, but maybe Steve, maybe just we'll go to you and highlight a few things that you saw, and then we're gonna come back. Don't worry, Sam. We're gonna come back to some of those topics because you listed, like you say,
Yeah.
about 8 of them. Yeah, go ahead, Steve. Anyway, what
Yeah.
caught your eye there?
Well, there's a number of things. A lot of the things that Samantha mentioned, I liked as well. The big one that I thought was I would say about time, but also it's so nice to be able to see it because a lot of other softwares don't do it. It's the ability to have intercompany between companies that aren't of the same base currency.
Yeah.
So I can have a U.S. company and a Canadian company, and I can be running them. I can have both of them set up with their own base currency. I can cut a purchase order in one, and it automatically creates the sales order in the other, does the do tos, do froms, does all of that information back and forth, does the currency conversion for you. And so you can now be looking at, a Canadian company can be looking at inventory and see what the US company has in stock. And if they want it, they can't just sell it. They have to actually purchase it from the US company. But the system enhances that ability so that you can create the purchase order, transfer it to the Canadian company, and then sell it to your customer. And that's a functionality that has been asked for a lot of our clients and a lot of companies we've dealt with over the years. That's fantastic to be able to do.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was really cool. Yeah.
We're definitely going to drill into that a little bit more because and get into some particular business scenarios, and you can tell we're excited about some of these features. And I think that for me, that was probably the biggest one too. We knew that's been out there. Hey, they've talked about that forever. We know, Steve and I have been in the Acumatica world for a lot of years, and we know that's been on the roadmap. And we're never really sure when. And even as recently as a month or so ago, we thought that might make it into the 2021 R2 release. Well, sure enough, they're showing it today, and it's coming in the R1. And Steve and I were texting. I was like, "Is this really what they're showing?" Because it's pretty exciting. And for we want to break that down into some business scenarios because we're actually really excited about that, and we'll spend a bit more time here. For me, I think some of the things I saw were just Acumatica is always pushing the bar on workflow and usability. And so there's even some subtle things on the distribution side that we saw that even for drop shipping or vendor returns, again, that might not be the most interesting or sexy type of functionality, but it's stuff that just helps the workflow and helps users every day do things that, to help improve their life and then how things process. For those attendees here, that don't be afraid to send your comments or questions in the chat box. We are going to come back to some of the topics that we just mentioned here and drill down into them. But if you want to throw out a business scenario that you're dealing with and say, hey, how how we might handle it, just let us know here because otherwise we're gonna get a little bit deeper into some of those other topics. Anything else that caught? So those are things that I want to come back to that I noted, and just even what we talked about is some of the dashboards and usability enhancements, the retail commerce for sure, and the intercompany stuff. I don't know if Steve, there's anything on the construction side or anything else that you might want to highlight.
There's a few improvements around on the construction. No, there's more than a few, but there's a few that jumped out at me. They've enhanced the Procore integration. So now you can be more tightly integrated with Procore for your construction to get all your information transferred back and forth. They've enhanced the pro forma. So you can, if you're starting in a new system or your project's already underway, you can bring in balances and opening balances and still have them display on your pro forma invoices. There's a few things like that were really good. The really nice one is the paying AP bills by project. You can now do your AP payments and you can select all the bills to be paid based on the project that you want to pay. So there's a few things like that that are really nice.
Yeah.
The other aspect that I looked at that I saw was manufacturing. Has a couple of cool new things that even one of our clients was texting me during the session saying, I need to talk to you about this. And the two of them are a PLM, a product lifecycle management, is now fully integrated with the system. So you can right from design, engineering, all the way through to all the different enhancements and versions of a product that you're manufacturing can be controlled and tracked. as well as a new capable to promise feature. That the system's always been able to do
Available to promise.
And available to promise, to say, this is what we have on hand, and this is what's coming on purchase orders. But there was a problem with what can I do for capable? And so now what they can do is the system can look at all the outstanding sales orders that are online, look at the availability and what the capacity is of your work centers, and it can schedule new production orders to fulfill the need of the sales orders, and then let the sales order and the salesperson know that, you know what, we originally we told you we wouldn't have that until next month. We've looked at it and we have availability in our schedule, and we're going to have that to you next week.
It's almost like those what if scenarios, though, that they mentioned as well, right? It helps, capable and available to promise. They're similar, but they're still a little different, right? So I know that they were saying those what if scenarios are, easily accessible and managed now.
Yeah, so there's a few really nice things in the different areas. And those are just the two, that's construction and manufacturing that I looked at. I know there's a number of others that are just usability features, enhanced notifications, the ability to send out emails to customers or to vendors or anything like that, and how you search and look for them and be able to, you don't have to go set up a notification ahead of time. You can go in and create a notification on the fly and send it out to a specific list of people. So they've really done a lot of enhancements around that kind of thing as well. Usability of the system.
I think on the notification, I like the example that I think it was Doug Johnson that was showing is creating an ad hoc notification. I think the example he mentioned was that if you have a warranty, you have products that you've sent out, you have a warranty, and there's a recall notice, but you were able to quickly go there, determine what customers had purchased this product. So there was a dashboard that he just went to, he pulled it down, did some filtering on it, filtered by the item, then filtered by the kind of customers, filtered by the location, or maybe, but then also by the date purchased, and then it was able to grab that list and then quickly, press a couple of buttons and create a notification that went immediately emailed to that. But those kinds of things, again, are some, they're very, it just shows off the flexibility of what the software can do. You're not having to pre-program it. There's no like recall notice functionality specifically built in. You can just do that naturally based on kind of ad hoc queries and things like that. Hey?
Definitely. And the really nice thing is the recall was one, but as he was going through it, I had 3 or 4 other scenarios pop into my mind where it could be something as simple as marketing. Give me a list of all the people, my customers who have purchased this product in the last 2 years, or in this certain range, and I want to send them a notice to say, hey, there's a new version or there's an upgrade, or and you can, any kind of information you want to put out to your customers or your vendors even. You can do that really quickly and easily. Yeah,
nice. So let's go back to I want to go back to you, Sam, and talk a little bit about, you mentioned that the Commerce Edition has been kind of rebranded to be around retail. Maybe talk a little bit about that. And I think when we think about commerce or e-commerce, so there's the term out there called the omni-channel experience. And what that means is, hey, making sure that the customer, if they walk into your store, or if they find you online and they purchase online, or however maybe they phoned in an order, but the omni-channel experience is meant that they get the same experience. There's a consistency, the pricing, how you treat customers is really the same. You may get, maybe you buy something in store and then return it to a different store, or you buy it online and return it in store. So that's kind of how it has to be consistent. But maybe I think what Acumatica is doing is probably bringing some of that, a little bit tighter with the retail point of sale, as well as, of course, we've had the integrated commerce solution. But maybe just share a little bit more thoughts about exactly what that means, and maybe a couple of business scenarios that are maybe a little tighter in the new release than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, they definitely tightened up some of the loose ends around the commerce side. I mean, the commerce integration, I mean, from the get-go was really compelling. You know, being able to integrate directly and natively with Shopify and BigCommerce was a huge you know, thing that Acumatica accomplished. I think that was absolutely fabulous. But yeah, as far as the omni-channel experience, and I'm not sure if COVID was the actual reason they sort of spearheaded against this more to really help those smaller businesses leverage an omni-channel experience. And that's sort of the way I'm thinking. I'm not sure 100% if that's why they did it, but you know, giving a business, a small business, one that may just have one location, maybe two, the ability for people to place orders online and pick up in store, or you know, or vice versa, sort of giving them the ability to have that sort of an omni-channel experience instead of, you know, the traditional pay less shoes, or you know, big companies or winners, well, maybe not winners, but you know what I mean, like the big companies, they have the omni-channel experience. You buy something online, most places you can actually return it in store, but a lot of the little guys couldn't do that. And I think that's really where Acumatica felt that they should, you know, capitalize off of the pandemic, but also say, hey, these little guys, they, you know, they need help too. So I definitely think that's sort of the direction that they went for, as far as giving everyone the ability to have that omni-channel experience.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that if you start to piece things together, and I know there's different software platforms that are like that, then you might seem, oh yeah, we get all this, but you know, it may seem that it's one system, but oh, you got to add this piece or add that piece and things like that. I know Acumatica's strategy's always been that it's all really one code base, and I think as you can tighten that up, and Acumatica has, you know, continued to enhance and bring some more stuff under kind of within its umbrella, but I think that helps, like you said, helps small businesses. So instead of you don't need to hire a bunch of consultants or IT people or developers to tie all the stuff together. I know we've seen that a ton, where maybe some people are interested in, you know, getting into e-commerce, but what they might naturally gravitate towards is developing their own e-commerce site. But you don't really need to do that anymore. There's a lot of great tools that can get you up and running quickly. You don't have to spend $100,000. You can start, you know, really start leveraging the software and get going almost immediately. Hey.
Well, and I think that, and that's kind of where it comes back to, why is Acumatica having a native integration of BigCommerce and Shopify so compelling? And I think that's really where we need to start, as far as why does this matter? And it's because it is a lot more cost effective, right? You know, when we're talking, I mean, even there's large companies out there that are running commerce solutions, whether they're open source, whether there's some sort of, you know, standardized development, whether it's Shopify or things like Magento even, but people are manually exporting information one way or another into their ERP, right? Whether or not that's been a development that's been automated to some level, it was still a very upfront cost that company had to invest in. Not only that, but they have to maintain that long term, right? So every time they go through their yearly upgrade, that piece of code, if it was developed, is getting modified. So, you know, directly tying into Shopify and BigCommerce, you know, as far as now, it's a huge money savings. I think that's where we really need to start. This makes sense. This is a really great thing to do. There's no development. There's no reinventing the wheel. There's no reason to bring anything in house. There's no reason to store anything on, you know, servers or dumping things manually. You know, I think that's really the most compelling part of Commerce Edition with Acumatica. And now that, you know, the additional stuff of it, yeah, POS, you know, being able to sync things like that, where people have the ability to have that omni-channel experience, that's a nice to have. But I still think that most businesses need to be educated on why this integration that was announced last year in April is such a big deal. That's my opinion.
Yeah, so a couple other areas we wanted to go back to, or even just talk about some of the usability. You talked about some of the dashboard or the you know, things like that. Maybe get into that a little bit, and maybe what some of the business scenarios about that, and why we see some of the enhancements, why we're excited about some of the enhancements.
Well, the fun thing that I want to mention off the hop for that is that I bet you Acumatica is, you know, really driving this usability stuff because they've been leading it for so many years, right? I don't think they want to fall behind. So as far as, you know, being ranked #1 in usability, I don't know how many years now. I know it's been, you know, back to back the last 3 years I've been with Accurus, but, you know, leading that market. I don't think Acumatica wants to be stripped of that title, right? Everybody wants an easy system to use, and that's pretty critical. So I definitely think that's, that's why they're always working on, how can we make a better customer and user experience, for sure, is where it would start, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the dashboards, like you were mentioning, they added some new features in there. The speedometer or power meter that's in there, the funnel that charts, and then the tiles, the ability to launch screens and items from there. Those are really nice, and that's really what the other side of those kept going is the side panels. Last year they added the side panels to it, so you can be looking at an inquiry, a list of transactions or a list of documents, and you can just highlight one of the lines, and without having to click and open it, you can just open the side panel and it'll give you information about that line. They've added considerably more of them for 2021. There's lots more, and they've enhanced the functionality of them. So you can now have conditions and modify the ordering of things in those side panels, and what visibility you can see based on the user. So there's a lot more of that usability where you don't have to go to multiple places to find the information. It's all available to you quickly.
That query side panel they released last year was really, really good, because I remember, it's such a pain in the butt to have to run a query or modify it, run it, see if it works, and then have to exit out of it, and then you forget what it looks like, and it becomes kind of daunting. I think that was really helpful as far as the query perspective goes.
Yeah. Exactly. And those side panels have been super useful for a lot of different people, just for simplifying how you see your data.
A history feature is too.
Yes.
I love that one they released last September.
Oh yeah. We know that, through some of the previous podcasts that we did in January, we did some of the top technology topics in our business technology topics, and it doesn't matter what study you look at, but data and analytics are in it. So AI or analytics and data, doesn't matter what source you look at, there's something in there already on that. And I think the first way to get there, it's great to say, we want to have better data, or we want to have dashboards and analytics. And to get there, there's a couple of strategies. You could spend a whole lot of time and effort. You could drop an analytics tool on somewhere, but if your underlying data is not accurate or timely, or if you don't have a system that's actually capturing it, then you're going to blow your budget in data cleansing and time effort of people doing it. So our strategy is always, using the ERP system as the starting point, but then having dashboards that are built in, and that's the way to get immediate analytics. And so now that we have better power to show data in the means that customers want to see it and render it, whether they want to email it, have it emailed, or view it, interactively, and things like that. So I think it's really cool to see each release spending a lot of time focusing on how analytics and dashboards can be improved. And and we know it's not stopping there. That's one thing that we know with Acumatica. It's always pushing the technology boundary. It's always, what can we do more, right? And I think that's something we see each release.
Oh, I think they kill it on usability every time. Every release gets a little bit better, as far as, the history features. And the best part is every user is able to have their own experience, right? Like when I recorded that manufacturing demonstration yesterday, I accessed information in like 4 different ways. Each and every time I went through a certain modules I accessed one way, certain modules I accessed the other way, through the universal search, through my favorites, whatever it might be, right? So I think that giving users the ability and the flexibility to be more efficient, having the data not only come to them, but having them easily be able to look for it, is another, key performance indicator on the Acumatica front.
Let's a couple of things I want to come back to. Steve, you mentioned the PLM integration. Maybe, I don't know if you maybe spend a little bit of time talking about that, but I do want to also get into a little bit more into some of the intercompany and the cross-company stuff. So why don't you spend a little bit of time, maybe just share a little bit about the deeper thoughts around what the PLM, what does that mean, and how can a company be interested in that? And then we'll spend a little bit more time talking about the intercompany.
Yeah, just quickly on that PLM, it's something that's very specific to to manufacturing companies, of course, but it's also specific to companies that are building a product and upgrading a product and fulfilling a market need. So I know one of our clients specifically, they deal with technology. It's an electronic device that they need, and it's constantly evolving. They want to always make it a new version and make it better and make it smaller, just like everything else in the world. But the PLM allows them to track that, and it even allows to track from inception. I have an idea for a new product, and you can start the design, and it tracks what are the design needs, what are the features, what are the requirements, all the way through the engineering and testing to production, and then revisioning from that point forward. You can keep track of all of that information. So it is really nice for companies that are constantly innovating.
Nice. And then of course it's in Canada here that one of the biggest things that we in the world might be somewhat unique, and not because we say a lot, even though we do, but unique in that we're our biggest trading partner and is right below us here in the United States. So what that happens is a lot of companies in Canada, they may have multiple companies in Canada, but it's also pretty common that they have a US entity. So whether they've expanded down there and set up shop, or maybe acquired a company, or that's pretty common that there's a set of Canadian entities and a US entity. And that's always been a good feature of Acumatica, in that it's able to support that. And we have unlimited users, and you could set companies up like that. But the limitation has always been that if you're really doing business in the US, you have to be in a US based currency. But let's come back to that a little bit. And now with what they've announced is being able to share, have different companies of different currencies in the same tenant, to get a little bit technical here. But maybe Steve, just share a little bit more deeper thoughts around what's a difference maker that is, and how that really, not only can we handle it, so instead, and that's one of the limitations of some of the lower end systems, is that just handling multiple companies doesn't really work very well. But now handling multiple companies with different base currencies opens up a whole other layer and creeps into areas that previously only existed for some of the most expensive software products on the market. But maybe share some thoughts on that as we close.
Yeah, that's exactly it. In the 25 years I've been doing this, you mentioned it. It may be a Canadian thing where where a lot of our companies, our customers, if they happen to do business in the States, they need to have a US company. It's for tax purposes, it's for ease of payroll purposes, all those things. But instead of what it's always been in most of the other systems I've dealt with, is you always had to have a separate, in our case, tenant. So your US company was in one tenant, and your Canadian company was in another tenant, and they didn't share customers, they didn't share inventory. If you needed to sell something from one to the other, it was do an entry in this company, log out, go into the other company, and do another entry. And I will say, even the intercompany that existed before, when you have, and you still have this option, if you have two Canadian companies and they're in the same tenant or same database, you can have it do a transaction where you do the debit in one company, the credit in another, and the system does a do to and do from. That was the beginning of intercompany. This is now the ability to actually sell between them. So now you're doing true purchase order from one and a sales order in the other, and a shipping and a receiving. So now you're dealing with all the arm's length information. So if you have to be arm's length to deal with your dealings, it keeps you separate and it keeps you independent, but the system allows you to. And what we were looking for many years was, can we have a Canadian company or tenant in one database and a US one in another, and cross those? Well, they fixed that by saying, well, let's just put those companies in the same database, same tenant, and let them have different base currencies. And so now you can have a different base currency, a different year chart of accounts even. There's a number of functions that you can do. And that was always the limitation in the past with all the other mid-market softwares that I've worked with. And now this ability allows you to go everywhere. And I can't even count how many customers I've had that are Canadian based, but they have a US or a Taiwan or a UK or anywhere in the world where they have another operation, another legal entity. this allows them to do information back and forth. And not only that, it will allow them to see inventory. So now if I need to look at inventory, I don't have to go and ask those guys or log out and go into some other system. I can just see what inventory is in the US. So there's some real big power and benefits to being able to do that most of the other mid-market softwares can't do. You have to go up considerably higher to the more expensive ones to get to that.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we are at 2:30 for today, so we do have to wrap up. But with the Acumatica 2021 R1 launch, I think they will be probably posting a link for it, and I'm sure we will share that on the Accurus website as well as our LinkedIn when it becomes available. Next week, we have another guest speaker joining us. So be sure to tune in with us for next week with Jesse, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Good. Thanks for joining us.